Good afternoon and welcome to Strategic Focus Point webinar series. We might have a couple people join us late, but in the interest of your time, we're going to go ahead and get started. One of our goals today is to make sure that this webinar is as useful as possible to our listeners. So if you have any questions at any point during the presentation, please type it into the Q&A box on the lower right corner of your screen, and Josh, Dave, or I will answer it once we finish with our prepared remarks. Before I begin, let's start with some introductions. I'm Nikki Kraus, Managing Director and Global Head of Client Development here at Strategic. I oversee the development of client relationships and drive the firm's marketing strategy. I have been in the outsourced CIO space for 24 years. I'm joined by Josh O'Brien and Dave Spaulding. Josh is the Managing Director and Head of Investment Operations for the firm and really led our efforts to become GIPS compliant, along with a whole team of additional professionals. And Dave is the founder and CEO of the Spaulding Group, an internationally recognized authority on investment performance measurement. He's the founder and CEO of the Spaulding Group and founder and publisher of the Journal of Performance Measurement. We've worked hard to put together an in-depth presentation on the overall applicability of the GIPS standards in the OCIO model. We'll also discuss some common hurdles cited by OCIOs for why GIPS cannot be applied to the OCIO model. But to be clear, as we said in the title of the program, yes, OCIOs can be GIPS compliant. So without further delay, we're going to get started. So our overview today, you can see the agenda. We'll talk for a moment about Strategic and the Spaulding Group. Dave will talk about what is GIPS compliance and how is it relevant to OCIOs. We'll talk about the GIPS standards applying to the OCIO model. We'll also talk about the aspects of the GIPS standards as they apply to the OCIO model. We'll also talk about GIPS 2020 and how they impact OCIOs. We'll summarize, and then as noted earlier, we'll have time for questions. So briefly, for those of you not familiar with Strategic Investment Group, we have been a dedicated OCIO and only a dedicated OCIO since our founding in 1987. So we've been doing this for 31 years. When we started, we called ourselves a fiduciary partner, although now that people commonly call us a dedicated OCIO. We focused on this and only this, again, for our entire 31 years with a focus on delivering excellent performance to our clients, knowing that for OCIO to really work, it has to deliver investment results. We do believe we're the closest thing to hiring an internal staff. We have no conflicts of interest, nor any business model conflicts, and our mission is really to help our clients achieve their missions. We believe we're Goldilocks size, so large enough with about $30 billion, or 29.6 to be exact, in discretionary client assets as of June 30th, to have the scale to have a deep team, but small enough with only 29 clients that we can provide very customized offerings to our clients, given we believe that that meets their needs. We offer durability and depth. We have a 42-person investment team. The average tenure of the 8 senior leaders on the investment side have been at Strategic 19 years. So there's tremendous stability in our investment team and the leadership team here at Strategic. And then finally, and part of what we're going to focus on a lot today, we have delivered excellent results for our clients, and we wanted to make sure that when we were talking to the marketplace, that people trusted the results that we were providing to them, which is why we sought GIPS compliance. If you look at the OCIO marketplace, there's been tremendous change. You can see there in 2007, the chart on the right, there were certainly sizable assets in the OCIO space at about $90 billion. But what happened, Casey Quirk did a study in 2008 called The New Gatekeepers, and there were about 8 firms at the time offering an OCIO service, and after that study came out, literally we went from 8 firms to about 108 firms, and so it grew exponentially, and as that growth has happened, I think there's been a lot of confusion in the marketplace about what is OCIO, what does it encompass, and certainly, as we're going to focus on today, the performance track records. So if we go to the next page, The OCIOs in the marketplace have really come from a lot of different origins, which create some of the confusion and some of the complications relative to how to show a performance track record. So if you look on the right, some of the firms have come out of being a commercial or investment bank where potentially some of their business was more high net worth or still had a lot of institutional business, but they use proprietary product where they might earn additional fees through managing, say, a large cap portfolio. There have been mutual fund organizations that perhaps initially focused on delivering one or two portfolios to someone that then moved into offering a full suite of investment portfolio options. Consultants where they came from a non-discretionary heritage with a wide range of mandates. There have been a number of boutiques where they came from, say, a university, and some of those also, complicating matters, also may have employed consultants, so who also take credit for the track record. So it's been a comprehensive group of organizations who've entered the space. And then there are what we are, OCI-only firms. This is all we do. It's all we've done from the inception of the firm. So this is part of why it can be difficult to get an apples-to-apples comparison of OCIO providers. And I'll also add in that I think is very important, I know Dave will get into, is the notion of discretion. You cannot be GIPS compliant if you do not have discretion. And then the other note that you'll hear often, and we'll talk about this again more as Dave gets into his comment, is some organizations provide very customized approaches, which makes GIPS more complicated. But again, as we'll talk about, doesn't make it impossible. So Dave, I'd love to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Nikki. And I want to begin by thanking you for inviting us to participate in what we think is a very important program today. We're not as old as your firm. We're in our 29th year. And like you, we have a focus, and our focus is investment performance and risk measurement. And our services are quite broad. We do GIPS and non-GIPS verifications. We conduct training classes, both in-house for clients. I was at a client this week, in fact, as well as what we refer to as open enrollment training. We do consulting, publishing. We publish the Journal of Performance Measurement, which has begun its 23rd year. We also publish books. We host two membership groups, the Performance Measurement Forum and the Asset Owner Roundtable, both of those in North America and Europe. And we hold 3 conferences each year, what we refer to as PMAR, Performance Measurement, Attribution, and Risk. We hold one on the East Coast, more often than not in Philadelphia. Last year, we started holding one on the West Coast. The first was in LA, the past one actually last month in San Diego, when we will be returning to San Diego next year, and in Europe, where we've been in London for several years doing that conference. I should also mention that we have offices in the New York City and LA metropolitan areas. And again, everything we do is performance measurement oriented. When I move to the next slide. Okay, so to begin to talk about GIPS, and as the slide says, what is GIPS and why do we need it? I think I want to start with the why it's needed before I get to what GIPS is. And I want to give a little bit of history. Back in 1986, for the first time, investment managers began to advertise their past performance. And at that time, there were no rules as far as how you would do this. And it's perhaps not surprising that some of the methods that were used were questionable. So, for example, using model performance, or in cases where actual accounts performance was being used, it appears that some cherry picking was going on. So one would question really how representative the reported performance was. And so in response to that, the Financial Analyst Federation came up with the first standard that was published in 1987. And since then, there's been a series of standards, with GIPS being what we have today, which was introduced in 1999.